my great pleasure and honor today to introduce you to Mr. Shinpei Takeda. Mr. Takeda graduated from Duke University in 2001 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Earth and Ocean Sciences. He also recently received his master's degree in Leadership Studies from the University of San Diego with a focus on nonprofit leadership and management. Before graduating from Duke, however, Mr. Takeda and his colleague, Mr. Warren Ogden, founded the AJA Project in 2000. The AJA Project, in partnership with National Geographic and under co-sponsorship of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, is a Spanish acronym for Autosuficiencia Juntada con Apoyo, which translates from Spanish to supporting self-sufficiency. The mission of the AJA Project is to afford children affected by war a unique opportunity to raise global awareness and to break the cycle of violence. It does so by providing them with innovative media arts and photography-based educational programs that empower youth to explore identity and develop communication and leadership skills for the purpose of fostering self-sufficiency, both for the individual and their community. The AJA Project currently operates 3 international programs in Bogota, Colombia, San Diego, California, and the Burma, Thailand border. As one 13-year-old refugee from Afghanistan states, I really like taking pictures with the AJA Project because I got to express my feelings and ideas and share them with others. I got to show people about my family and my country so that they can see that we are all the same, we are all human beings. The AJA Project also sponsors a traveling exhibition of the youth's work from these programs, which is what brings Mr. Takeda to the Triangle today. A multimedia exhibition of artwork by young refugees from around the world entitled Lives in Transition, Expressions of Refugee Youth, features more than 70 photographs as well as writings, recordings, and quilts by refugee youth from Afghanistan, Burma, Colombia, Iraq, Somalia, Sudan, and Togo. The photography exhibit will be displayed at the Smith Center from April 6th to May 14th. Mr. Takeda has kindly agreed to present us with some slides and to talk to us about the AJA Project and its programs. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Shinpei Takeda.
First of all, it's also a privilege for me to be able to speak here, and thanks for inviting me. I want to actually start from this video that talks a little bit about our Thailand project. Maybe that could give you a little bit of idea. Like he said, we've been working with young people with photography, and this shows some of the programs in action, as well as some of these stories that these young people have to offer. So let's see. Okay.
My name is Oluwa. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. I like to play game. I love my parents and teachers.
Could be the DVD player. Or with a DVD. Excuse me. Let me check the. Can I change the other? Sorry. I already changed the tune, actually. Wow, it just shut down. Right? Anyway, I'll just keep talking. So that was the first half of the 7 minutes video. But we work with some of these young people there in refugee camp in Thailand. And that's where the some of our first projects started in this Burmese refugee camp. So Burma is next to Thailand. It's to the west of Thailand. And then there's been a lot of displacement issues happening there. A lot of people displaced to India, a lot of people displaced to Bangladesh, a lot of people displaced to Thailand, a lot of people displaced to China. And they're mostly ethnic minority. We work particularly with Karen ethnic groups, which is a group that resides on the eastern mountain part of Burma. And they have been fighting for their land over the last 50 years against the Burmese regime of Burma. Now they call themselves State of SPDC, which is State of Peace and Development Council. But I'm sure you have heard some things about Burmese regime, but it has been very inconsistent with their policy. I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's ethnic cleansing, but their policy toward ethnic group has been very harsh. So a lot of Korean refugees has been displaced for over the years, and now there's up to 130,000, 140,000 in those. That was in the refugee camp, and about 12 refugee camps along the Thai border. So I have been going there since actually I was in Duke as an undergrad, through some grants that I received, and then I first started out just teaching English, and then I eventually got involved in some of the photography work, and then started doing that type of project. The interesting issue that's going to come up with this case is that there's going to be 8,000 to 9,000 Burmese refugees that's going to be coming to this area, not this area as in to the U.S. And there will be probably, I don't have the accurate numbers, but there will probably be some people that's going to be coming to North Carolina because there are already some Korean refugees that already live here in Carswell and High Point, Raleigh as well. So one of the things we're talking with the Center for Documentary Studies is to possibly do a collaboration around that. So the idea is to actually we would train young people before leaving the camp, and they would take the camera and they would kind of keep a journal, and they would kind of document this process of resettlement. And then some folks from Center for Documentary Studies would work with them, editing the photographs after they arrive. We're doing the same project with people going to Norway. Norway has been accepting about 200-300 Burmese refugees every year, and this is the first year they started taking some of the people from the camp, and so we just got funding from a Norwegian government to do that project. So actually, as we speak, some Norwegian kids that are resettling to Norway have a bunch of films and cameras in their hands and taking photos, which is an interesting process because a lot of us, not many people know what this resettlement really means. And there's so many different agencies involved, international agencies as well as the local agencies that helps resettlements. Like case here would be Lutheran Family Services would be the ones in this area. So there's so many different agencies involved, and not many people know how this whole system works and some of the process that they have to go through. So that would be an interesting way for us to see what the children experiences through this resettlement process. if it wasn't working, that's fine. We could just do the PowerPoint. I changed it.
And one sister.
Try to bring it to the middle.
Cable.
Try to bring it to the middle. I mean, there's no. I don't have any. Can you take it further in? A little bit more. It's gonna be difficult. Okay, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Let's just do the PowerPoint. For some reason, my DVDs are not compatible. Maybe it's anyway. So I'll just do the PowerPoint. So basically, I guess I want to start from this is the same kid. His name is Somudoa. So he talks about this with this photo, how one day a big bullet fell in and suddenly fell into our village. All villagers had to run. We were very tired, and I was very scared. This is Somudoa, 13 years old. Next one. This is taken by children from Cambodia that has resettled to San Diego. She came about 10 years ago. She talks about, I like Cambodia dancing because I love everything about Cambodia. It's my homeland. She's 15. This is taken in Colombia Project. San Marina, 10 years old. She had been displaced to a slum area outside of Bogota. And then she's so-called IDP, or internally displaced people. From the countryside because there's a lot of civil war going on. Talks about we love our little sister because we take care of her when my dad isn't around. We have to take care of her because my mom left us when we were small. This is the some of the our model for how we do our programming. We try to really impact the not only the refugee young people, but we also try to impact the local community where they live, as well as the wider community. Our mission statement, which is children affected by war have, by their choices, their actions and expressions, a unique opportunity to raise global understanding and to break the cycle of violence. In response to this, Asylum Project provides innovative media arts and photography-based educational programs that empower youth to explore identity, develop communication and leadership skills for the purpose of fostering self-sufficiency, both for the individual and their community. So when I first started this organization, we had a retreat, and we had to really sit down and talk about why are we doing this, what is the impact. So these are some of the works we've been doing. So our main program is basically we've been working in those areas, Colombia, Thailand, and San Diego, doing a programming using photography, storytelling. And then really we try to help increase their self-efficacy, try to get them to use this as a way to explore some of their identity, trying to use this as a way to improve mental health because this could be used as a way to externalize some of the trauma that they bring from their homeland. Also helping them to develop communication skills. And then we also do exhibit. I'll show you some example later in the local area so that some of these photos and stories are actually exhibited in the local area so that people can understand what they have gone through. And also the traveling exhibit. So we worked with National Geographic and UNHCR to bring this to different parts of the country so that people can also see some of these stories. And one of the feedback we get is that it brings a human face to some of these conflicts that we hear about and some of these personal narratives. I think it helps humanize some of these issues. Okay. So according to UNHCR, we work with UNHCR, and it's a wonderful group, and it's a large, it's also bureaucratic, and I've had both wonderful experience and miserable experience trying to work through. And then sometimes in the local setting, these UN card that comes in is sometimes not necessarily positive sign. But we have a good relationship with them. 19.2 million basically refugees according to UNHCR, and people of concern is worldwide. In the region where I work in, this is sort of what the camp looked like in this area, basically. So in this little area in the riverbank, there's like 130,000 people just cramped together.
What do people consent as opposed to?
They're the ones that are not officially recognized as refugees. So in order to be recognized as refugees, the host country have to recognize them as a refugee. So like in the case of Thailand, they're not fully recognized as refugees. And hence the UNHCR have to be invited by the host country who recognize some of these people as refugees. So in Thailand, because they have not been recognized as official refugee, but rather they have been recognized more as a temporary displaced people, UNHCR never intervened until last 5 years ago or so. So it's been only 7 years, I think, 7 years, and they still work in very limited capacity. It's usually run, a lot of the camps are run by more of a private NGOs.
Why would the host country not want them recognized as refugees?
I think there are many various reasons they don't want them. In the case of Thailand, they've had the various experiences such as Indochina refugees, people from Cambodia. They went with the whole thing. They recognized them as a refugee, and it took them a lot of money and a lot of time. I mean, it was 20 years ago, and now finding like last set of refugee left. That's from Cambodia, and ones from Laos, as you may know from the Vietnam War. Some of the Hmong people that they were used by CIA. They were hired by CIA to do an operation there. They were displaced after the Vietnam War to Thailand, and that was in 1970. Don't quote me on this. 1978, I believe. But they have been there for a long time. And then just last year, final set of Laotian refugees came to the U.S. That was a big news. So basically, when the country does that, it requires a lot of time and money and resources. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that with the Thailand and Burma issue, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of logging issue, narco traffic issues. Thailand also wants to have some kind of buffer between Burma and Thailand. So these Korean people has been acting that. But so this is our program. We've been doing that. I just kind of talked about some of these things. So not only we just do just provide them cameras, but we also really try to push them to talk about their experiences, try to get them to talk about their culture. So we basically hire local people there, and they actually in turn teach photography to the local young people. I don't know how many people are going to go into nonprofit or international aid world, but we have an interesting model. We did not want to go through some of these large USAID or CARE or IRC because there's a lot of overhead costs to be involved. So what we're doing is we just actually went down there and hired local people. And I mean, it's like a $50,000 a year. And we have 6 people, and because there's no overhead. And I go there twice a year just to monitor. But they have an ATM account. They just take the cash from an ATM machine, and we use Skype, the internet phone, and we just do a weekly call. So it's in a way, it's an interesting model, I think, in the sense that we can be very grassroots and still be very international. So I'm able to run this project in the middle refugee camp, small project from San Diego through my computer. So that's the darkroom that we actually had. Now it's kind of gone digitized, so they'll have. This is another project, another workshop they did where young people had went around and they really discussed about this idea of identity and cultural heritage, because some of those people in the camp had been stuck there for like 20 years, 15 years, 20 years. So they went around. So there's this, in a sense, the identity crisis. There's not much place to talk about culture and what does it mean to be Korean people. Oops, sorry. So they took photograph of a fairy tale and they traced it onto the canvas. And you can see some of these this in the Smith's Warehouse exhibit that Brandon mentioned. Um, this is another girl who took photograph of how it was for her to escape from the war. In U.S., where I'm based in San Diego, there's quite a lot of refugees. I don't have the official number because it's hard to track the refugees that's coming into San Diego, because a lot of people usually get resettled into a certain area, and then they would usually move from the place, the initial place where they're resettled to. But 60,000 is that's roughly, and 57,600 I think is the number that the U.S. for 2005 the U.S. has a spot for the resettlement. So that's about the. I think it's been increasing after September 11th. I think it went down to like 20,000 post September 11th, and it went up. So, and then actually, U.S. does take a lot of refugees. If you look at the worldwide number of people resettling to the third country, and the so that slot is going to be partially filled by some of these Burmese, 8,000, 9,000 Burmese refugees that I told you about, and then the rest are all over the map. So we've been working with some of these people in San Diego that has resettled there from Iraq, Afghanistan, Colombia, Sudan, Somalia. And it's an interesting dynamic in some of the communities because there's a lot of a Navy population there. There's a big Navy town. So there are people in the same apartment complex. There's people that came back from Iraq, bombing Iraq, and there's people that escaped from Iraq, from those bombs. They're living together, next to each other. So in those settings, we do provide same project, and trying to get them to really talk about some of this journey, how they came from their old home, how they escaped, and how they came to San Diego. Some of that. This is a Somali kid. So we do a lot of storytelling as well. So we try to get them to talk about their experiences. And some of our source of income is actually a health foundation. So we actually do evaluation and try to prove that some of our project, providing an outlet for externalizing these trauma, is good for their mental health. And we're still working on tracking that, because it's very difficult to track some of these things. You can't say, because they did this project, their mental health is better by 5%. But we're doing our best to do that. We've been working with a lot of refugees from Somalia, and that's been an interesting case because with the tension against Muslim, particularly in San Diego area, they've had a very difficult time. She talks about coming here to U.S. This was in one of the, so when we worked with UNHCR, this was in D.C. when they rolled up one of those resolution to, I think it was to try to help unaccompanied children in deportation process so that they can get legal aids, I believe. And that was 3 years ago. And that was some of our students that took photographs. This is Sen Feinstein. Some of the work we do, we also do, I talked about the local exhibit, but I tried to put some of these photographs in their local community. And so this is some of the oldest photographs that young people took so that local community, folks in local community can understand and can embrace these newcomers. Okay, on to Colombia. So in Colombia as well, we have a similar model to Thailand. We hire local people there. And Colombia is, like I said, there's IDP is an issue there. So IDPs are people that are displaced within the country. So there's a lot of people. This is an neighborhood that we work with at Progreso. And a lot of people came there from countryside because there's a lot of civil war going. We call it shooting cameras for peace. So for us, it's really for children, I think that having a camera is just one tool, but it helps them, I think, be an active participant, an active storyteller of their own story and history, which has been, I think, one of the most important things.
Do you ask the children just take the pictures and then get stories from them afterwards, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, there's, it's more, some of them are more semester long, so we work them through basic techniques, but we also get them to try to get them used to storytelling. Yeah, and then, after they take photographs, we work with them, edit together, we do books, we do exhibit. And the sense of validation that they get after taking photographs and then putting it up, seeing on a gallery, is an incredible. I think that they feel that their story is validated. They feel that their stories are appreciated. This is also when we did a workshop in Afro-Colombian part of Colombia. That's another photo. And this was when we did the exhibit in UN. So we had Annan, Kofi Annan's wife. What was her name? I've totally forgotten. Mrs. Annan, yeah, and First Lady came there and then saw our exhibit at the UN. This was in the, there's a visitors hall underneath the big building in New York. And that's where we had the exhibit. Yeah. Okay. That's my presentation, and I wanted to see if you have any questions. I think there's a lot of interesting things, particularly here in North Carolina. When I was just driving down Trinity off East Campus, and there's some areas there, 300 blocks actually, where all this like Latinos and all this Hispanics are there, and I was there hanging out, trying to find some people to help me move things, and they had a lot of amazing stories, and they all were, refugees in a way. So I think this is a very interesting area because there's a lot of immigration happening, particularly from Mexico.
One, you said you used the local community, people in the local community to, to teach. You pay them to work. Do you find people that already have photography backgrounds, or do you train them and you take them into the dark room and train them?
Yeah, so this is a sort of a terminology in NGO called capacity building.
Okay.
So we really try to do a capacity building of not only the individual that we hire, but also the whole community. So some of these people that I work with down there, they didn't know they'd never seen a computer, they'd never seen a car. So they've been living in the jungle for a long time and had lived in this traditional hill tribe lifestyle. So it's been about 5 years since they started learning how to open a notebook computer and how to do a book financial record, how to manage the programs, how to do reporting. So really, we've been and then of course photography skills. They've never had cameras, so I had to teach them all that. So it's been a capacity building process that's been happening, and I think that's a really important thing. When foreign aid comes in to some areas, it's they usually tend to hire expats, and that from what I've seen, I only have limited experiences, but they usually have a very condescending. They usually have a very the dynamic between the local population and some of the foreign aid staff are usually very difficult. So I try to really hire local people and try to listen to them because they know what the best solution is for them, and they have their own way of doing things, including how to deal with authorities, how to deal with different leaders and elders. Those are very hard for outsiders to get to know. So that's been I think, successful for us, and that's part of the reason that we've been able to run this grassroots project in grassroots manner.
It seemed like, at least in Burma, the Burmese kids, a lot of those photos were kind of recreations of things that happened in Somalia, their initial flight over it. Is Is that what they mostly do, or is it?
That was just a part of that. We have different themes every time. So some people, sometimes they take photograph about their elders. So they go out and interview elders and take photographs of them. They're a good documentary photographer, I think, in a sense that, particularly the ones in San Diego. I have a little bit of a photography background, but particularly the ones in San Diego, they're very, very good documentarian because they're somewhat detached. So they're able to see things like, oh, there's white people in tall building. And they're able to see things from a little bit detached point of view, which is, I think, interesting. Yeah.
As far as the funding for your cameras, are you able to get donations from companies like Kodak or anything like that, or does it have to come from the grant money?
That's so far we haven't had a major sponsorship from some of these companies, but we hope. Yeah.
Where does your funding come from?
Like I said, right now, like 70, we have. So we start. So this is. I have to be honest. This is 5 years ago. We had $2,000, nothing, and then I was working out of my living room, and then now we're up to 300,000 just in San Diego. And Thailand and Colombia has their own budget. And we have 6 people, 6 full-time, which is, I think, is a good amount for what we're doing. But the 70% of the funding basically comes from foundations, a lot of health-related foundations. We get also funding from NEA, National Endowments for Arts. So some from arts, some from health-related foundation and education-related foundation. So that's been our main source of income. And we have some corporations that provides funding and some individual donors.
So as you've gone from just like $2,000 budget to this great, amazing thing you have going on now, I mean, did you kind of have to navigate the waters yourself? Were there people that helped you figure out how you start a grassroots international nonprofit?
Yeah, well, I was just speaking at the Professor Fleischman's class, and that's he talks about some of that stuff. But it's the board of director that can help you speak to these people that can pull things. I think is one of the key. So for being young and starting a nonprofit like this, and 20 or 22 or 23, it was very difficult because I could not make the case compelling enough to some of these funders. So for us, it has been really trying to get some of this board of director member to really speak on behalf of us, and also just being innovative. I mean, foundation likes innovative approach. We just got $30,000 from this health foundation just to hire psychologists for a whole year, so that we can just do a whole year evaluation of our program to really see what is this impact on mental health. So that's how we plan to really track some of these objectives I talked about, like increase in self-efficacy. And after these data is available, I think that would make it much more easier for us to apply, reach out to much bigger funders. So, is anybody thinking about starting a nonprofit or something like that? It's an interesting. It's also a very difficult one if you're young, particularly because it have to really start from your relationship and who you know. And that has been where I struggled because I didn't know that many people. I had passion, but that didn't take me that far. Yeah.
We actually have students who've already started nonprofits.
Wow.
Yeah, while they're here.
That's wonderful. And that's what I did. When I was senior year, I already had the 501c3 submitted, and not knowing what I was going to do. But yeah, it's an interesting experience. The other thing is just there's amazing amount of volunteer that's always out there. So we have 6 or 7 volunteers, 10 to 20 hours a week, doing fundraising, or they'll help you. So that's been very incredible, in-kind services. Yeah.
This is a little tangential, but the Karen people, they had, those were the 2 brothers, is that right?
2 brothers,
Kind
yeah.
of,
Yeah, I don't know what that.
they don't have any connection with these kids?
I think that they broke off from some of these main group. And then this current issue is very complicated. There's religion that gets involved. There's a Buddhist group that broke off. But when I was actually first there, I was there right after this attack, which was kind of ridiculous because it was in this camp that was in Thailand where they escaped to. And then what happened was these Burmese military came across the border to Thailand, and they had some kind of understanding, negotiation between Thai authority, who was supposed to protect the camp. So they came in the middle of the night, and they just burned this entire camps, and they killed like 13 people. And so I got there right after that. So that was very harsh. But so they were, so in the camp, they're always afraid that there's some spies, whatnot. So that's why I think you can understand the Thai authorities are just very corrupt. And when you try to, they have a lot of sort of a constantly changing policy toward Burma. So things like that always happen.
When you initially get involved with another group of refugees, is it sometimes tough to convince them that you're there for their best interest or that you're not a spy or something?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then there's always this, the camera, and they need food. So that question always comes up, I think. Yeah, I've been told I was a spy, or I've been told that why do I bring cameras? Why I could have given money for other things, So yes, if you look at the per head cost of this project, it does get expensive per children because we do spend some resources for each children. So that's a question that I think that we have a certain expertise that we can offer. So that's how I always try to answer that.
Are the children more receptive than the adults, or does it make a difference?
We've just been mainly working with children, not because they're receptive. I think the adults are receptive as well, but they're in some of those camps, the children are often ignored. So.
Do you have plans to go to other countries?
Yeah, it's funding based. Unfortunately, this is. So so one of the things that we're doing is we've been submitting subcontract papers under like big groups like CARE International, IRC, and they usually receive this huge like $20 million grants from USAID. So that's been sort of an international aid trend, is that USAID, they don't have enough staff. They just sort of disperse chunk of money to a region, and they usually use a US-based international NGOs, and their job. And they have their own programming, but they also have a whole department usually dedicated to dispersing that money, subcontracting to a smaller group of people. So just in Thailand, there's USAID gave $24 million because I think they didn't want to deal with $3 million grants. So they just gave $24 million grants. It was open to people, but I think it was pretty well known that it was going to be IRC. And IRC took it, and it was for mental health and education for 130,000 people. So they have some of their programming, but I think that they also subcontract out, and we're on their list, but I don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, we have done some pilot project in Banda Aceh after the tsunami, and we've been seeking some funding sources for that.
If you were able to have enough funding to start your fourth international program, do you have any ideas or visions about where you want to?
I think that
Where's next?
one of the places is Afghanistan, just because we work a lot with Afghani kids in San Diego. We thought it would be interesting to really connect some of the people in U.S. That have came over from Afghanistan, to connect them back to people still in Afghanistan. Because a lot of times people really lose touch once they get displaced. So.
This is obviously a new organization, and I imagine that the resettlement experience in San Diego is different for children as it is for adults.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find, and I know you're a new organization, do you find that that on the whole, resettlement experiences becomes a positive thing, or are there? I know there's probably some difficulties with assimilation.
Yeah, maybe you can look at this case about people going. So that camp is actually sending 300 people to Norway. So they just sent 300 people. So they just Norwegian people came and they screened people, and then 300 people going. They have no idea what Norway is. They've never been out of that camp. So for their entire life, they've always lived in this nomadic life, and usually some of them, before coming to the camp, some of them lived in more of a more mountainous area. So they had this slush and burn agriculture where they would move from one hill to another hill, and so they would farm and they would burn the forest, and then they would farm for 2 years, and they moved to another hill. That's sort of their lifestyle, and then so they have all this amazing it's sort of a fascination about going to Western country. So they're gonna get a car, they're gonna get education, but they have no idea what the weather is, what it is that they're gonna have to do. So this will be interesting for them to be documenting the process from their point of view. So we actually, after this project is done, we actually plan to make a book so that people in the camp are much better informed about what that means to resettle. But maybe bringing back the issue to here, when I was here, I actually had worked with some of the Korean refugees that had resettled here, and I followed them with my camera from the moment they arrived in the airport throughout the next 3 or 4 months. And the day after they arrive, they are told, okay, now you're gonna have to reimburse your airplane tickets. And that's the thing with the US. With Norway, no, but in the US, when you arrive, you have to pay for your tickets. So like, they don't have any job, they don't have anything going on. They don't speak the language. They don't know how to turn the gas on. I mean, they don't know any of these things. And there is some orientation programs in the camp, so they learn some things, but when they arrive, they don't know that many people, and so they are told to reimburse their plane tickets right away. So it's very difficult. So I followed them, this particular family, and they had to go to Social Security, get the Social Security. They don't know any of that. And there is some support, but it's very limited. They have to get welfare, Medicaid, food stamp, and a lot of times, they end up cleaning, bathroom in UNC. And then their initial intention before coming here is like, oh, I'm gonna get education, I'm gonna be able to send money back, and now they're just really barely, trying to survive, and they don't have a car to go grocery shopping, and it's a very harsh reality, actually. So there are some people that succeed. Yes, there are some people that comes here and become successful member of the society, but I think that a lot of people struggle, and that has to do with pre-displacement socioeconomic status usually, and education. So if they're able to speak English prior to coming here, they're much better off. Yeah, that's sort of from my experiences, that's been the case. Yeah. And also, like, if you compare to like Somali refugees and Iraqi refugees in San Diego, Somali refugees, they all came from Kakuma camp. So they're all from they're formerly farmers. They're just people from the camp. They didn't have that much educational background. Whereas the Iraqis, they're people that had gone to English schools. So they came from much more higher socioeconomic status. So they're much better off. Whereas Somalis, they're just sitting and eating welfare, usually. So that's another thing, is that I think that some of the resettlement agencies here don't have the capacity to handle, to think about pre-displacement status and whatnot.
Do you ever have refugees who decided they miss their homeland so much they're going to go back to it's very dangerous?
I think that's very unlikely. I mean, that's very unlikely, because a lot of times they just come here and they just have to work to pay their rent. And they don't. I mean, I know that you can't come back after 6 years or so, I think. I think you have to stay here. You can't leave the country for a little while.
How long do most of them remain in this country?
I think they never. I don't have the statistics, and I'm not a specialist on that. But my understanding is that they usually stay. I mean, they usually stay and they get a green card and they get citizenship. So.
I guess there's an effort when some go to Norway and some go to the U.S. that do they get to choose which people they stay with, and
Well,
are they close to the people who are being sent far away, so that's another trauma for them?
yeah, I mean, for the U.S., I think the case is that they usually go to where their friends or families are. I think you have to have an invitation from people that you know from the U.S. So that's a little bit better. Norway, I heard that they get dispersed all over the place.
But I mean, even deciding which ones go to Norway versus here.
They have each country have a different standard and different criteria. So they all submit an application to UNHCR, and then they decide, okay, well, this person would better fit the criteria of Norway. And that's a very complex thing that I've never seen this list of criteria, and I don't know how big of a difference it is between the criteria to be settled to U.S. or criteria to be settled to Australia is. But usually it has to do with their background, how political they were, and how much in danger they are. I think there's some kind of a system to measure that.
So there's a lot of separation of family and community probably.
Yeah. That happens. Yeah. I think they try to make it easier so that once one family member comes here, it's much easier for him or her to invite the rest of the family. Yeah, but it's a very complicated process. So we work with International Organization for Migration and UNHCR, but IOM is just involved in moving people, and UNHCR is involved in screening people. IRC is involved in orientation program. So just in camp in Thailand, there's 3 agencies involved. And some refugees don't even know until 2 weeks before their departure where they're going or when they're going. So.
As far as you know, is this your career into the next 10 or 20 years? I'm
Sorry. That was in front of the major donor, yes. But I've been here for 5 years, doing this 5 years. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of we're in a phase that I think that somebody with more fundraising skills and more management skills can maybe better cater to this organization than myself, because I was just a founder. I guess I had the vision and passion, but it's a business at the same time. You have to pay the rent, you have to keep the bills paid. So we'll see. We'll see. It does take a lot of spirit away when you have to go to these donor cultivation processes. I think there are a certain type of people that are good for that, and I don't know if I am or not, but it has been definitely interesting to be able to come back from the camp, to go to some of these donor meetings. So I'm able to see both sides, what's happening at the grassroots level, and how the background, behind the scene operation is being done. So, but if you guys are interested in starting a nonprofit, I would recommend doing that. But you gotta have some energy for good, and passion. Any other question? Cool.
You want to make a plug for the exhibit?
Oh yeah. So I totally forgot. This is the exhibit flyer for the exhibit. So it's a part of this arts festival that Duke Performance is putting together. So there's a bunch of jazz concerts on Saturday and whatnot. But our thing is starting Thursday at 8:30 p.m. At the Smith's Warehouse. You know where that is? It's at it's on Buchanan. Or if you go take the bus, Campus Drive, and then take the bus to East Campus, right before you go under the bridge, before the East Campus, there's a tobacco warehouse. So you go up the dirt road a little bit. So it's this long building behind that, and they've converted this old tobacco warehouse to this multimedia lab and all kinds of stuff. And there's a space there where we have the exhibit. I think it could be interesting and it's gonna be around until May 15th or so. So if you have a chance, you can stop by.
If there are no other questions, be sure to catch the exhibit. I think you said it's till April 14th.
May 14th.
May 14th.
Yeah.
And find out more about the project, you can go to www.ajaproject.org. And let's give a round of applause.
Thanks. Thanks for coming.